The Zephyrian War cruiser Void Talon drifted silently through the asteroid field, its sensors scanning for any sign of human activity. Captain Zeltar stood on the bridge, his four arms crossed as he watched the tactical display. The humans had been quiet for too long, and that made him nervous. "Captain," called his communications officer, "we're detecting a small vessel approximately 12 kilometers off our starboard bow. It appears to be a human scout ship." Zeltar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. After 3 months of fruitless hunting in this sector, they had finally found prey. Full scan. "How many life signs?" "Just one, sir. The vessel appears to be heavily damaged. Life support is failing." "Perfect. Prepare the tractor beam. We'll bring them aboard for questioning." The Void Talon was a massive ship, nearly 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. Against the tiny human scout vessel, it was like a predator stalking wounded prey. The tractor beam locked onto the small ship and drew it into the cargo bay with ease. Within minutes, Zephyrian soldiers surrounded the human vessel. The airlock hissed open, and out stumbled a lone figure in a battered EVA suit. The human was tall by their species standards, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes visible through the helmet's visor. What struck the Zephyrians immediately was how calm he appeared despite being captured. "Remove your helmet," ordered Commander Vexta, the ship's security chief. His translator unit converted the words into the human language. The human complied without resistance, revealing a weathered face marked by old scars. He looked to be in his 40s, with the bearing of someone who had seen considerable combat. His eyes swept the cargo bay, taking in every detail with the practiced gaze of a soldier. "Name and rank," demanded Vexta. "Marcus Chun, Lieutenant, Colonial Defense Force." The human's voice was steady, betraying no fear. Zeltar arrived in the cargo bay moments later, curious to see their prize. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic stage, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They had quickly proven themselves to be resilient fighters, but they were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned by the established powers. "Take him to Interrogation Chamber 3, Zeltar ordered. "I want to know what the humans are planning in this sector." The interrogation chamber was a sterile white room with a single chair in the center. Marcus was secured to the chair with energy restraints that would deliver painful shocks if he struggled. Across from him sat Zeltar and his chief interrogator, a Zephyrian named Kethare, who specialized in breaking prisoners' minds. "You will tell us about human military movements in this sector," Kethare began, his voice dripping with menace. "Your fleet positions, your supply lines, your planned operations." Marcus looked at them with an expression of mild interest, as if they were discussing the weather. "I'm afraid I can't help you with that information." Kethare activated a neural disruptor, sending waves of agony through Marcus's nervous system. The human tensed, but made no sound. When the torture ended, he looked up with the same calm expression. "That was unpleasant," Marcus said conversationally. "But I've experienced worse." For hours, they worked on him. Neural disruptors, pain inducers, mind probes. Every tool in their arsenal was brought to bear against the lone human. Marcus endured it all with stoic silence, occasionally making dry observations about their technique. "Your neural disruptor is running at about 60% efficiency," he noted after one particularly brutal session. "You might want to recalibrate the frequency modulators." Zeltar found himself growing frustrated. In his experience, humans broke easily under interrogation. They were an emotional species, quick to crack when properly motivated. This one was different. "Perhaps we need to try a different approach," suggested Kethare. "We could threaten human colonies, use civilian populations as leverage." Something changed in Marcus's expression. The calm demeanor remained, but there was a new coldness in his eyes. "That would be inadvisable." "Would it?" Zeltar leaned forward. "Your people seem quite attached to their noncombatants. Perhaps the thought of orbital bombardments on your farming worlds will loosen your tongue." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice so soft they had to strain to hear him. You really don't know who I am, do you? You told us. Lieutenant Marcus Chun, Colonial Defense Force. That's what my current identification says, yes. But names can be changed. Identities can be buried. Marcus's eyes met Zeltar's, and the captain felt an unexpected chill. Tell me, Captain, have you ever heard of the Reaper? The interrogation chamber fell silent. Every Zephyrian in the room knew that name. The Reaper was a legend, a ghost story told in hushed whispers throughout the galaxy. During humanity's first major conflict with the Hegemony Coalition 15 years ago, someone had systematically eliminated 3 entire enemy fleets. Not just destroyed them, eliminated them so completely that no trace was ever found. The attacks have been surgically precise, targeting command ships and leaving the rest to surrender or flee. Entire star systems have been cleansed of enemy presence in a matter of days. The perpetrator had never been identified, never been caught. After the war ended, the killings stopped, and the Reaper vanished into myth. The Reaper is a fairy tale, Kethare said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is he? Marcus asked mildly. Funny thing about fairy tales, sometimes they turn out to be real. Zeltar felt his 4 hearts beating faster. Even if such a person existed, what would he have to do with you? Marcus smiled for the first time since his capture. It was not a pleasant expression. Everything and nothing. You see, the man you knew as the Reaper died 15 years ago. He was buried under layers of false identities and medical records. He became Marcus Chun, a simple Colonial Defense Force lieutenant. A nobody, a small fish in a very big ocean. The captain's translator was having trouble with some of Marcus's words, but the meaning was clear enough. You're claiming to be this mythical figure? I'm not claiming anything. I'm simply explaining why threatening human civilians was such a poor choice. Marcus's restraint sparked as he shifted slightly. You see, gentlemen, there are rules to war. Lines that shouldn't be crossed. When someone crosses those lines, his voice trailed off ominously. Vexta entered the chamber at that moment, carrying a datapad. Captain, we've received the human's complete military record. Lieutenant Marcus Chun has served with distinction for 12 years. No previous combat experience before joining the Colonial Defense Force. Marcus chuckled softly. Paper trails can be very convincing when properly constructed. Zeltar studied the human more carefully. There was something unsettling about his composure, the way he seemed completely unaffected by his situation. Most prisoners either raged against their captors or cowered in fear. This one sat, as if he were merely visiting. Even if your wild claims were true, the captain said, what could one man do? You're restrained aboard my ship, surrounded by 5,000 crew members. You have no weapons, no allies, no way to escape. True, Marcus agreed. I'm completely helpless. The way he said it made Zeltar's skin crawl. There was something deeply wrong about a helpless prisoner who seemed so utterly unconcerned about his fate. Sir, Vexta interrupted, consulting his datapad. I'm reading some anomalous energy signatures from the prisoner's ship. Our engineers think there might be some kind of delayed activation device. What kind of device? Unknown. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Zeltar felt a growing unease. Could it be a bomb? Possible. Or a beacon. The signature is too faint to determine. Marcus listened to this exchange with apparent interest. You might want to evacuate that cargo bay, he suggested helpfully. Why would you warn us? Kethare demanded. Because I'm not the monster you think I am. I don't kill unnecessarily. Marcus's expression grew serious. But I also don't let threats to innocent people go unanswered. Sir, Vexta's voice was urgent now. The energy signature is growing stronger. Whatever it is, it's activating. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as crew members rushed to battle stations. On the bridge, the tactical officer reported massive energy spikes emanating from the captured scout ship. All hands, this is the captain. Zeltar's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. We have a potential explosive device in Cargo Bay 7. All personnel evacuate the area immediately. But As the Zephyrian crew fled the cargo bay, something else was happening. The energy emanating from Marcus's ship wasn't random. It was a carefully modulated signal, broadcasting on frequencies that no known species used. Deep in space, automated systems that had lain dormant for 15 years began responding to the call. In the interrogation chamber, Marcus closed his eyes and seemed to be counting under his breath. When he reached 30, he opened them again. "It's done," he said simply. "What's done?" "Zelltar demanded. I've sent a message. A very specific message to very specific people. Or rather, to very specific machines." The ship shuddered suddenly, as if something massive had struck the hull. Then, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, but the damage was already apparent on the bridge displays. 3 ships had appeared out of nowhere, materializing from hyperspace with impossible precision. They were sleek, black vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No known species used designs like these. "Unknown vessels. You are in violation of Zephyrian space," the communications officer transmitted. "Identify yourselves immediately." The response came not through normal communication channels, but directly through the ship's computer systems. Text appeared on every screen simultaneously. "Return the package." "Package," Zelltar muttered. Then understanding dawned. "They're here for the prisoner." "How is that possible?" Vexta asked. "No one knew we had captured him. We haven't transmitted anything since bringing him aboard." In the interrogation chamber, Marcus was smiling again. "You underestimate human planning, Captain. The beacon in my ship wasn't just an energy signature. It was a quantum entanglement communicator. The moment you brought me aboard, my friends knew exactly where I was." "Friends?" "The ships outside aren't manned by living crew. They're autonomous vessels, built for one purpose: to retrieve me if I ever found myself in a situation like this." The Zephyrian captain stared at him in disbelief. "You're saying you've had robot ships following you for 15 years? "Not following. Waiting. Stationed at strategic points throughout the galaxy, programmed to respond to my beacon signal." Marcus's tone was matter-of-fact, as if he were explaining something obvious. "Did you really think the Reaper worked alone?" Another shudder ran through the ship as the mysterious vessels moved closer. Their weapons were charging, energy readings climbing to levels that made the Zephyrian sensors scream warnings. "Sir, they're targeting our engine sections," the tactical officer reported from the bridge. "If they fire, we'll be dead in space." Zelltar felt a cold certainty settling in his stomach. Somehow, impossibly, they had captured exactly the wrong human. The one person in the galaxy who could summon ghost ships from the void. "What do you want?" he asked Marcus directly. "Nothing dramatic. Just to be released, along with an assurance that no Zephyrian vessels will threaten human civilian populations." Marcus's voice remained conversational. "Oh, and I like my ship back. It has sentimental value. And if we refuse—" Marcus shrugged. "Then, my friends out there will demonstrate why the Reaper became a legend in the first place." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. The mysterious vessels had moved into attack formation, their weapons fully charged. On the bridge, every threat assessment system was screaming that they were about to be destroyed. Zelltar found himself facing an impossible choice: release a prisoner who might be the most dangerous human alive, or face destruction by ghost ships that shouldn't exist. But as he looked into Marcus's calm, patient eyes, he realized the choice had been made the moment they brought him aboard. The Reaper had returned from the dead, and hell was about to follow with him. Captain Zelltar stood frozen on the bridge of the Void Talon, watching 3 impossible ships hold his vessel hostage. The tactical display showed energy readings that defied everything he knew about weapons technology. Each of the mysterious black ships carried enough firepower to vaporize his cruiser 10 times over. "Sir, the unknown vessels are hailing us again," reported the communications officer, her voice trembling. "Put them through." The same text appeared on every screen. "You have 60 seconds to comply. Return the package unharmed." "Package," Zelltar muttered. He activated his communicator. Bring the prisoner to the bridge. Now, minutes later, Marcus Chun entered the bridge flanked by 6 heavily armed guards. He moved with the same casual confidence he'd shown in the interrogation chamber, as if he were touring the ship rather than being escorted under guard. His eyes immediately found the tactical display, and he smiled with what looked like genuine pleasure. The Erebus, Nemesis, and Thanatos, he said, reading the ship signatures that appeared on the display. My old friends. I wondered which ones would respond to the beacon. Zeltar stared at him. Those ships have names? Of course they have names. I named them myself 15 years ago. Marcus stepped closer to the view screen, where the sleek black vessels hung in space like deadly shadows. Beautiful, aren't they? Each one is about half the length of your ship, but they pack considerably more punch. How is this possible? Demanded Vexta. No human technology could produce vessels of this capability. Marcus turned to look at him with an expression of mild amusement. Who said they were built with human technology? The implications of that statement sent chills through every Zephyrian on the bridge. If the humans had access to alien technology more advanced than anything known to the galactic community, it changed everything about the balance of power. 30 seconds appeared on the screens. Captain, the tactical officer called out urgently. I'm reading massive energy buildups in all 3 vessels. Whatever they're planning to do, they're about to do it. Zeltar looked at Marcus, who was watching the countdown with the patience of someone waiting for tea to brew. What happens when that timer reaches 0? They'll disable your ship and extract me, Marcus replied matter-of-factly. Your crew will be unharmed, but your engines, weapons, and communication systems will be completely destroyed. You'll be adrift until someone comes to rescue you. And if we resist, then they'll disable your ship and extract me, but some of your crew might get hurt in the process. Marcus's tone remained conversational, but there was steel underneath. I prefer the first option, personally. 10 seconds. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of the countdown timer and the increasingly frantic beeping of alarm systems. Zeltar found himself paralyzed by the enormity of the situation. He had captured what he thought was a simple human scout, only to discover he'd taken prisoner someone who commanded impossible ships with impossible weapons. 5 seconds. Wait, Zeltar called out. Stop the countdown. The timer froze at 3 seconds. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Have you made a decision, Captain? I need to understand what's happening here. You claim to be this mythical Reaper figure, but the war ended 15 years ago. Why surface now? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression growing serious. Because someone threatened human civilians, Captain. When you made that threat in the interrogation chamber, you crossed a line that I swore would never be crossed again. But we didn't actually attack any colonies. Intent matters, Marcus interrupted. The moment you decided that innocent lives were acceptable leverage, you became a threat that needed to be eliminated. The way he said eliminated made every Zephyrian on the bridge take an unconscious step backward. This human spoke of killing with the same casual tone he might use to discuss the weather. However, Marcus continued, I'm not the same man I was 15 years ago. The Reaper was created by war and shaped by necessity. Marcus Chun is something different, someone who prefers to solve problems without bloodshed when possible. What are you proposing? Simple. You release me, return my ship, and transmit a message to the Zephyrian High Command explaining that human civilian targets are off limits. Permanently. Zeltar felt his mandibles clicking nervously. And if I refuse? Marcus gestured toward the view screen. Then, my friends out there will convince you. They're very persuasive. As if responding to his words, one of the black ships moved closer. The Erebus glided alongside the Void Talon with impossible grace, matching the larger ship's course and speed perfectly. Close up, its alien design was even more unsettling. The hull seemed to absorb light, creating an area of darkness against the stars. Sir, the tactical officer reported, the vessel is scanning our ship with some kind of penetrating beam. It's mapping our internal structure down to the molecular level. They're identifying critical systems. Marcus explained helpfully. Life support, artificial gravity, structural weak points. If they decide to disable the ship, they'll know exactly where to strike for maximum effect with minimum crew casualties. You're threatening 5,000 lives, Vexta accused. I'm protecting billions of them, Marcus replied calmly. Every human civilian who might become a target if this incident escalates. On the communication screen, new text appeared. Analysis complete. Ready to proceed with extraction. Zeltar felt sweat beading on his exoskeleton despite the bridge's climate control. These ships had analyzed his vessel in minutes and found ways to dismantle it without harming the crew. The level of technological sophistication was staggering. Where did those ships come from? He asked. What species built them? Marcus smiled, but there was no humor in it. That's classified information, Captain. Let's just say that humans aren't the only species in the galaxy who value the protection of innocent life. You're working with aliens? I worked with aliens. Past tense. The arrangements made 15 years ago were very specific and very limited. Marcus's expression grew distant. When the war ended and the Reaper disappeared, those arrangements were supposed to end too. The fact that the ships responded to my beacon means the original programming is still active. Programming. The ships are autonomous, remember? They operate according to very specific parameters. Protect human civilians. Prevent genocide. Stop wars before they start. Marcus looked directly at Zeltar. You triggered those parameters when you threatened orbital bombardment. The captain felt a chill of understanding. You're saying these ships will activate whenever someone threatens human populations? Not just human populations. Any civilian population. The programming doesn't discriminate by species. Marcus paused. That's why the wars ended, Captain. Not because of treaties or negotiations, but because certain lines became impossible to cross. New text appeared on the communication screens. Warning, additional vessels approaching. Recommend immediate resolution. The tactical display suddenly filled with new contacts. 6 more ships were emerging from hyperspace, taking positions around the Void Talon. These vessels were different, sleeker, more organic in design, and radiating energy signatures that made the first 3 look primitive by comparison. Marcus frowned at the display. That's unexpected. More of your friends? Zeltar asked weakly. No, those ships belong to someone else entirely. Marcus studied the tactical readings with obvious concern. Captain, I strongly suggest you release me immediately. This situation is about to become much more complicated. Who are they? The species I mentioned. The ones who helped build the original 3 ships. Marcus's calm demeanor was cracking for the first time since his capture. They're not supposed to be here. The largest of the new arrivals moved into position directly ahead of the Void Talon. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of a Zephyrian cruiser, and its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. When it opened communication channels, the voice that emerged spoke directly into every mind on the ship, not through translators or speakers, but through some form of telepathic contact. Greetings, warriors of the void. We're the architects of peace. We have come to ensure the fulfillment of ancient promises. Zeltar felt his legs give out. He collapsed into his command chair, overwhelmed by the implications of what he was hearing. The architects were legends themselves, a species so advanced they had supposedly transcended physical existence eons ago. They were mentioned in the oldest galactic histories as the ones who had established the fundamental laws governing interstellar civilization. Marcus Chun, the voice continued, addressing the human directly. You have activated protocols that were meant to remain dormant. Explain. Marcus straightened, his military bearing becoming more pronounced. When he spoke, it was with the tone of someone addressing a superior officer. Honorable architects, the activation was triggered by a direct threat to civilian populations. The Zephyrian captain threatened orbital bombardment of human colonies. We are aware of the threat. We are also aware that no such bombardment was planned or authorized. The Zephyrian captain spoke from anger and frustration, not from operational intent. Zeltar found his voice. That's true. I was trying to break him during interrogation. I would never have actually. Your intent is irrelevant, the voice interrupted. The threat was made. The protocols were activated. The ancient agreement must be honored. What agreement? Zeltar managed to ask. The architect's ship moved closer, its hull shifting colors and patterns that hurt to look at directly. 15 of your years ago, when the galaxy stood on the brink of total war, we made an agreement with certain individuals. We provided technology to prevent the extinction of all civilized life. In return, those individuals agreed to become guardians, protectors of innocent life throughout the galaxy. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. I thought that obligation ended when I retired. There is no retirement from the protection of innocence, Guardian Shun. You accepted the responsibility willingly. The technology we provided became part of your essence, linking you permanently to the defense protocols. The pieces were falling into place in Zeltar's mind. The Reaper hadn't just been a human super soldier. He had been enhanced by technology from one of the galaxy's most advanced species. He was, quite literally, a guardian angel with the power to enforce peace through overwhelming force. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now, Guardian Shun, you must choose. Return to active service as a protector of civilian life, or allow us to remove the enhancements that make such protection possible. And if I choose retirement? Then, the next threat to innocent life may succeed, because the Guardian who could have stopped it chose comfort over duty. The weight of that statement settled over the bridge like a lead blanket. Zeltar began to understand the true scope of what they had stumbled into. They hadn't just captured a human soldier. They had captured one of the galaxy's secret protectors, someone whose retirement had apparently left a gap in the universe's defense against genocide. I'll need time to consider, Marcus said finally. Time is a luxury the innocent cannot afford, the architect replied. Choose now, Guardian Shun. Resume your duties, or surrender your power. Marcus looked around the bridge, his gaze taking in every face. When his eyes met Zeltar's, the captain saw something that hadn't been there before. Uncertainty. Before I decide, Marcus said slowly, I want the Zephyrian captain to understand exactly what he almost unleashed. The bridge of the Void Talon fell into absolute silence as Marcus Chun stepped toward the main view screen. The massive architect vessel loomed before them, its liquid metal hull flowing in patterns that seemed to bend reality around them. Captain Zeltar found himself holding his breath, waiting for the human to continue. Captain, Marcus said, his voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. Do you know why the Hegemony War ended so suddenly? 15 years ago? Zeltar's mandibles clicked nervously. The history books say it was due to successful peace negotiations. The history books lie. Marcus turned to face him directly. The war ended because someone made it end. Someone who had grown tired of watching entire species disappear overnight. The architect's telepathic voice filled their minds again. Show him, Guardian Shun. Let him see what the galaxy would have become without intervention. The view screen changed, no longer showing the space around them. Instead, it displayed images that made every being on the bridge recoil in horror. Planet after planet reduced to ash. Star systems stripped bare of all life. Entire civilizations wiped from existence with weapons that could crack worlds in half. This is what was happening during the final months of the war, Marcus explained, his voice hollow. The Hegemony Coalition had developed planet-killer weapons. They weren't just trying to win anymore. They were trying to erase every trace of their enemies from existence. The images shifted, showing massive fleets of ships moving through space like a plague of locusts. Wherever they passed, nothing remained but debris and radiation. 17 species were completely extinct by the time I became involved, Marcus continued. Billions upon billions of lives snuffed out because someone decided that total victory was worth any price. Zeltar felt sick. He had heard rumors about the later stages of the Hegemony War, whispers of atrocities committed in the outer systems. But seeing the evidence laid bare was something else entirely. The Coalition's next target was a system called Haven Prime, Marcus said. 7 billion civilians live there. They were pacifists who had never taken sides in the conflict. Their only crime was existing in strategically valuable space. The view screen showed a beautiful blue-green world orbited by gleaming space stations. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by networks of light that spoke of an advanced but peaceful civilization. I arrived 6 hours before the Coalition fleet. The image changed to show Marcus's ship, not the small scout vessel they had captured, but something else entirely. It was sleek and black like the vessel surrounding them now, but smaller, more personal. It moved through space with impossible speed, weaving between asteroids and space debris as if it were dancing. The Coalition had sent 300 ships to eliminate Haven Prime. Dreadnoughts, carriers, battleships, enough firepower to sterilize the entire system. Marcus's reflection appeared in the view screen, superimposed over the battle that was about to unfold. I gave them one chance to withdraw. What happened when they refused? Vexta asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer wouldn't be pleasant. I showed them why threatening innocent life was a mistake. The view screen erupted into chaos. Marcus's ship began moving through the Coalition fleet like a scalpel through flesh. Ships didn't just explode. They simply ceased to exist, disappearing into clouds of dissociated atoms. The pattern of destruction was surgical, precise, and absolutely merciless. The Coalition fleet was eliminated in 18 minutes. The architect's voice provided narration. No survivors. No escapepaths. Guardian Shin had decreed that those who would commit genocide deserved no mercy themselves. Zeltar watched in horrified fascination as the massive fleet was systematically annihilated. The human ship moved with impossible grace, its weapons firing beams of energy that seemed to unmake matter at the molecular level. It was like watching a force of nature, as inevitable as a black hole, and just as deadly. "Ow," he whispered. "How is such destruction possible?" Marcus turned back to face him. "The architects gave me access to technology that exists outside normal space-time. My ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a tool for rewriting reality on a local scale. The Guardian's vessel could manipulate the fundamental forces that hold matter together," the architect explained. In the hands of one dedicated to protecting innocent life, it became the ultimate deterrent against genocide. The view screen returned to showing the space around them, but the implications of what they had just witnessed hung heavy in the air. This quiet, unassuming human had once wielded the power to unmake entire fleets with a thought. After Haven Prime, word spread quickly through the Coalition. Marcus continued. Any fleet that threatened civilians would be destroyed. Any commander who ordered attacks on non-combatants would be eliminated. The war crimes stopped because the perpetrators knew they would die if they continued. But the war itself continued, Zeltar observed. Yes, but it became a war between military forces only. Civilian populations were off-limits. Colony worlds were spared. The conflict eventually ended through exhaustion rather than extinction. Commander Vextas stepped forward. "You're saying you single-handedly changed the nature of interstellar warfare?" "I enforced the rules that should have existed from the beginning," Marcus corrected. "The architects have been watching galactic civilization for eons, hoping we would evolve beyond the need for such intervention. When it became clear we wouldn't, when species began embracing genocide as a military tactic, they decided to act." "Why you?" Zeltar asked. "Why were you chosen?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. "Because I had lost everything to war crimes. My family, my homeworld, everyone I cared about, all killed in a coalition attack on a civilian transport. I volunteered for the enhancement procedure because I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain by preventing others from experiencing the same loss." The architect vessel pulsed with shifting colors. Guardian Chen was chosen because his motivation was pure. He did not seek power for its own sake, but rather the ability to protect those who could not protect themselves. "And when the war ended, I requested that the enhancements be removed," Marcus said. "I wanted to live a normal life, to put the killing behind me. The architects agreed, but they left dormant protocols in place. If genocide threatened again, if someone crossed the lines I had established, the Reaper would return. Which brings us to today. The architect's voice carried a note of what might have been amusement. A Zephyrian captain threatens human civilians, not knowing he speaks to one who has made the protection of innocence his life's work. Zeltar felt the full weight of his error crashing down on him. He had captured and tortured someone who had once held the power to reshape reality itself. Someone who had saved entire species from extinction. Someone who might still possess that power. The choice before Guardian Chun remains. The architect continued. Resume active guardianship with full enhancement restoration, or retire permanently with all abilities removed. What would full restoration mean? Marcus asked. You would become what you were 15 years ago, but with accumulated wisdom and experience. The galaxy has grown more dangerous in your absence. New threats have emerged. Species that learn to hide their genocidal intentions better. The view screen shifted to show star charts dotted with red markers. 73 civilizations have been quietly eliminated in the past decade. The architect explained. Small enough not to attract galactic attention, but large enough to represent billions of lost lives. Marcus stared at the display, his expression growing grim. Systematic extinction of minor species. Indeed, the predators learned to be more subtle after your previous interventions. They now target isolated civilizations with no galactic representation. Primitive societies that no one will miss. And if I refuse restoration, then those extinctions will continue. Perhaps accelerate. The predators grow bolder in the absence of consequences. Zeltar found himself caught between horror and fascination. The being standing on his bridge wasn't just a human soldier. He was quite literally the galaxy's immune system against genocide. His retirement had apparently created a gap that genocidal species had learned to exploit. There's another factor to consider, Marcus said slowly. If I accept restoration, I won't be the same person. The enhancements change you, make you more willing to use extreme measures. The line between protecting innocence and becoming a monster yourself becomes very thin. You never crossed that line before, Vextau observed. Didn't I? Marcus's smile was bitter. I erased 300 ships and their crews without giving them a chance to surrender. I hunted down coalition commanders in their own homes and executed them in front of their families. I became judge, jury, and executioner for anyone I deemed a threat to innocent life. The architect's voice carried a note of understanding. The burden of absolute power is absolute responsibility, Guardian Shun. But consider this. In the 15 years since your retirement, how many innocent beings have died because there was no guardian to protect them? The number appeared on the view screen. 847,329,458,732 civilian casualties. The bridge fell silent as the magnitude of that number sank in. Nearly 1 trillion innocent beings had died, while the galaxy's protector lived quietly as Marcus Chun, lieutenant in the Colonial Defense Force. However, the architect continued, the choice must be made freely. We will not force you to resume duties you no longer wish to perform. Marcus closed his eyes and was quiet for several minutes. When he opened them again, there was a new resolve in his expression. Before I decide, he said, I want to make one thing clear to Captain Zeltar and his crew. He turned to face Zeltar directly. If I accept restoration, the rules will be simple and absolute. Any attack on civilian populations, any threat of genocide, any military action that deliberately targets non-combatants will result in the complete elimination of those responsible. Not imprisonment, not trial, elimination. Zeltar's voice came out as barely a whisper. And if you refuse restoration, then the next time someone threatens human colonies or any other civilian population, there will be no one with the power to stop them. Marcus looked around the bridge, meeting every set of eyes. The choice isn't just mine, Captain. It's yours too. Do you want to live in a galaxy where the strong can prey on the weak without consequence? The captain found himself facing an impossible decision. Support the return of a being who had once been the galaxy's most feared killer, or accept responsibility for the atrocities that would follow in his absence. But as he looked at the star charts showing the locations of vanished civilizations, Zeltar realized the choice had already been made long ago. Some lines should never be crossed, and some guardians should never be allowed to rest. Captain Zeltar stood in the center of his bridge, surrounded by impossible ships and facing an even more impossible choice. The weight of nearly 1 trillion lost lives hung in the air like a physical presence, pressing down on everyone present. In front of him, Marcus Chun waited with the patience of someone who had already made peace with whatever decision would come. Guardian Chun, the architect's telepathic voice filled their minds. Time grows short. Other threats are emerging even as we speak. The main view screen shifted to show a distant star system where massive ships were positioning themselves around a populated world. The vessels bore unfamiliar markings, but their intent was clear from their formation: orbital bombardment positions. The Kethmori hegemony has decided to test the boundaries of acceptable behavior, the architect explained. They believe the Guardian's absence means they can eliminate the Veltar species without consequence. Marcus studied the tactical display with professional interest. Population: approximately 4 billion. The Veltar are a peaceful species with no significant military capability. They possess valuable mineral resources that the Kethmori desire. How long do we have? The bombardment begins in 47 minutes. Zeltar felt his 4 hearts racing. He was watching the setup for a genocide in real time, and the only person who could stop it was standing 3 meters away, asking hypothetical questions. "Captain," Marcus said, turning to face him, "you threatened human civilians to extract information from me. If you had followed through on that threat, what would have been your justification?" The question caught Zeltar off guard. "A military necessity. Strategic advantage. The needs of my people. The same justification the Kethmori are using right now." Marcus gestured toward the view screen. "The same justification the Coalition used 15 years ago. The same excuse used by every genocidal regime in galactic history. But I wouldn't have actually done it. That's not the point," Marcus interrupted gently. "The point is that the threat itself is a weapon. Once you make it, you've already chosen your side in the fundamental war between civilization and barbarism." Commander Vexta stepped forward. "You're saying there's no middle ground? No gray area between protecting your own people and committing atrocities?" Marcus nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I'm saying. The moment you decide that innocent lives are acceptable collateral damage, you become part of the problem." 45 minutes remaining, the architect announced. The tension on the bridge was becoming unbearable. Zeltar found himself caught between his duty to his crew and his growing understanding of a larger galactic situation. The human was right. By threatening civilians, he had crossed a line that he hadn't even known existed. "If you resume your guardianship," Zeltar asked quietly, "what happens to those who have already committed such crimes?" Marcus was silent for a moment. "Justice delayed is justice denied, Captain. Everyone who participated in genocide during my absence will be held accountable." "How many people are we talking about?" The architect's voice carried grim satisfaction. "We have compiled a comprehensive list. Military commanders who ordered attacks on civilian targets. Political leaders who authorized genocide. Corporate executives who profited from slave labor. The total count is approximately 40,000 individuals across 17 species." The number hit the bridge like a physical blow. 40,000 people marked for elimination by an entity with the power to carry out such threats. "That's not justice," Vextop protested. "That's vengeance on a massive scale." "Is it?" Marcus asked. "These individuals collectively caused the deaths of nearly 1 trillion innocent beings. If anything, the proposed response is remarkably restrained. You're talking about becoming a mass murderer." Marcus's expression didn't change. "I'm talking about enforcing consequences for mass murder. There's a difference." 42 minutes, the architect reminded them. On the view screen, the Kethmori fleet was beginning to move into final positions. Zeltar could see the massive ships adjusting their orbital patterns, preparing to rain destruction down on an entire world. "Can't we warn them?" he asked desperately. "Send a message to the Veltar, telling them to evacuate?" "Where would 4 billion beings evacuate to, Captain?" the architect asked. "And how would such an evacuation be possible in 41 minutes? The hopelessness of the situation struck Zeltar like a physical blow. He was watching a genocide unfold in real time, and there was nothing he could do to stop it except convince the humans standing before him to become a killer again. "Marcus," he said, abandoning military protocol entirely, "please, you have to save them." Marcus turned to study him with those unsettling blue eyes. "Why? They're not your people. They're not even allied with your government. What do the Veltar mean to you personally?" The question forced Zeltar to examine his own motivations. Why did he care about a species he'd never heard of until 5 minutes ago? Why was their fate important enough to ask someone to sacrifice their peace of mind? "Because they're innocent," he said finally. "Because they don't deserve to die for someone else's greed. Because if we allow this to happen, we become complicit in their murder." Marcus smiled for the first time since the confrontation began, and this time the expression held genuine warmth. "That, Captain, is the correct answer." He turned toward the architect vessel. "I accept restoration. Full enhancement package with unlimited operational authority." "Are you certain, Guardian Shun? Once the process begins, there will be no reverting to your current state." "I'm certain." Marcus looked around the bridge one final time. "But I want these witnesses to understand what they're about to see. The Guardian who saves the Veltar will not be the same person who entered this conversation as Lieutenant Marcus Chun." "What do you mean?" Zeltar asked. "The enhancements change how you think, how you feel, how you perceive moral choices. They have to. No unmodified mind could handle the responsibility of holding life and death authority over entire civilizations." Marcus's voice grew distant. "When this is over, Marcus Chun will effectively cease to exist. Only the Reaper will remain." The architect's voice carried a note of ceremony. "Guardian Shun, do you freely accept the burden of absolute power in service of innocent life? Ido, do you swear to use that power only in defense of those who cannot defend themselves?" "I swear it." "Do you accept that your actions will be guided by justice rather than mercy, by necessity rather than preference?" Marcus hesitated for just a moment. "I accept." The change began immediately. Energy flowed from the architect vessel, surrounding Marcus in a cocoon of light that made it impossible to look at him directly. When the glow faded, he was still recognizably the same person, but everything about him had changed. His posture was different, straighter, more commanding. His eyes held a depth that hadn't been there before, as if he were seeing layers of reality invisible to others. When he moved, it was with the fluid grace of a predator in perfect control of its environment. 38 minutes remaining, he said, and his voice carried harmonics that resonated in frequencies beyond normal hearing. Deploying to intercept. One of the black ships surrounding them, the Thanatos, suddenly blazed with energy and vanished into hyperspace. Marcus hadn't moved, hadn't given any visible command, but somehow the vessel had responded to his will. How Zeltar began. "Quantum consciousness link," Marcus explained without looking at him. "My enhanced mind is now directly interfaced with all 3 vessels. I don't pilot them so much as think them into motion." The view screen shifted to show the Kethmori fleet from a new perspective as the Thanatos dropped out of hyperspace directly above the doomed world. The enemy ships detected the arrival immediately, but their response was confused and uncoordinated. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Kethmori operational space," came a transmission. "Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Marcus's response was broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously, ensuring that every ship in the fleet heard it clearly. "I am the Guardian. You have 60 seconds to withdraw from this system, and Abandon all hostile intentions toward the Veltar species. This is your only warning. The silence that followed lasted exactly 15 seconds before the Keth Mori commander responded with derision. 1 ship against 50? You must be insane. All vessels, target the intruder and fire at will. Marcus sighed softly. Some lessons can only be taught through demonstration. What happened next defied every principle of space combat that Zeltar understood. The Thanatos didn't dodge the incoming fire. It simply refused to be where the weapons expected it to be. Reality seemed to bend around the ship, creating zones where energy beams passed harmlessly through solid matter. Meanwhile, the Guardian's return fire was surgical in its precision. Each shot targeted a specific system on enemy vessels, weapons arrays, engines, life support, disabling rather than destroying. Within minutes, the entire Keth Mori fleet was dead in space, their crews alive but completely helpless. Impressive restraint, the architect observed approvingly. The crews were following orders, Marcus replied. They deserve a chance to make better choices. A new transmission came from the Keth Mori flagship. Guardian, we surrender. We withdraw all claims to this system. Surrender is not acceptable, Marcus responded, his voice carrying absolute authority. You came here to commit genocide. Withdrawal is insufficient punishment for such intentions. What do you want from us? Reparations. Your government will transfer 50% of its military budget to Veltar relief and development funds for the next century. Your entire command structure will be replaced with officers who understand the value of innocent life. And you will publicly acknowledge that the Guardian has returned to active duty. And if we refuse... Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of inevitability. Then, your species will learn why genocide is no longer a viable military strategy. The threat hung in space like a sword over the Keth Mori fleet. Zeltar could see the enemy commander weighing his options, trying to find some way to salvage pride from the situation. We agree to your terms. Excellent. You have 72 hours to begin implementation. Any delay will be interpreted as rejection of this agreement. The Keth Mori fleet began withdrawing immediately, their ships limping away on emergency power. On the surface below, 4 billion Veltar continued about their daily lives, never knowing how close they had come to extinction. Marcus turned back to the bridge of the Void Talon, and Zeltar was struck by how different he looked. The quiet lieutenant was gone, replaced by someone who radiated controlled power like a barely contained star. Captain, the Guardian said formally, you and your crew are free to go, but understand that your government now exists under the same protection and the same restrictions as every other species in the galaxy. Zephyrian civilians are under my protection. Zephyrian military personnel who threaten other civilians are under my jurisdiction. I understand, Zeltar replied, though he wasn't sure he understood anything anymore. Do you? Then, tell your superiors that the galaxy has rules again. Lines that cannot be crossed. A Guardian who will enforce those lines with extreme prejudice. Marcus smiled, and there was something terrible in the expression. The age of consequence has returned. As the mysterious ships vanished back into hyperspace, taking the Guardian with them, Zeltar was left to contemplate what he had witnessed. They had captured a simple human scout and accidentally awakened one of the galaxy's most powerful protectors. In the depths of space, 40,000 genocidal leaders suddenly found themselves marked for justice by an entity with the power to deliver it. Across the galaxy, species that preyed on the weak discovered that their hunting days were over. The Reaper had returned, and this time he would not retire until every last innocent life was safe from those who would destroy it. The galaxy's age of impunity was over. The age of the Guardian had begun.